Welcome to World True Crime, where we dive deep into the darkest corners of real-life mysteries. In today's episode, we unravel a chilling tale of forbidden love and deadly betrayal. In the small, serene town of Cedar Hollow, located on the outskirts of a major city in the northeastern United States. Known for its tree-lined streets, cozy cafes, and a strong sense of community, it's a place where everyone knows each other, and secrets are hard to keep. Nestled near a river, the town's old brick buildings and quaint charm give it an idyllic atmosphere, masking the underlying tensions that simmer beneath its peaceful facade. The events unfold in the late fall of 2013, just before winter sets in, adding a chilly backdrop to the escalating drama. Isla Montgomery grew up in a modest, working-class family in Cedar Hollow, where she was known for her warm, friendly demeanor. She was ambitious, dreaming of leaving the small town for a bigger, more exciting life. After graduating from college with a degree in marketing, she moved to the city and quickly climbed the corporate ladder. There she met Evan, her now estranged husband, a successful financial advisor. Their whirlwind romance led to a quick marriage, and for a time, they seemed like the perfect couple. However, as the years went by, their relationship began to unravel. Isla felt increasingly isolated and emotionally neglected as Evan prioritized his career over their marriage. Despite several attempts at reconciliation, the gap between them widened. When Isla discovered she was pregnant, she hoped it would bring them closer, but instead, Evan grew even more distant. Feeling abandoned and unsure of her future, Isla returned to Cedar Hollow to be near her family, separating from Evan in the process. Now at 32 and 4 months pregnant, Isla is trying to rebuild her life. She is determined to find stability and happiness for herself and her unborn child, though she struggles with loneliness and uncertainty about the future, leaving her vulnerable to new temptations. At 4 months pregnant, Isla Montgomery nervously walks into Cedar Hollow Women's Health Clinic for her routine prenatal checkup. She's been back in her hometown for a few months now, but the weight of her separation from Evan lingers heavily on her. As she enters the clinic, she's greeted by soft lighting and the gentle murmur of expectant mothers in the waiting room. She feels anxious but hopeful that this pregnancy will give her a fresh start. Her appointment is with Dr. Verdon, a well-regarded gynecologist in the community. In his mid-40s, Caleb has an air of calm professionalism. As he walks into the exam room, he introduces himself with a warm, reassuring smile. Isla immediately feels more at ease in his presence, his demeanor far gentler than she expected. Throughout the checkup, their conversation flows effortlessly, veering from Isla's medical concerns to light-hearted topics about the town's changing phase. As Caleb performs the routine examination, there's an unspoken connection between them. Isla notices the subtle attention Caleb gives her, more than just his professional duty. Though neither acknowledges it aloud, a mutual curiosity stirs, a flicker of attraction that's unexpected and unsettling, but quietly compelling for both. Over the next few weeks, Isla's prenatal appointments with Dr. Verdon become more than just routine medical checkups. Each visit starts with the usual questions about her pregnancy, but soon the conversation naturally drifts to more personal topics. Caleb asks about her life back in Cedar Hollow, her career, and her recent separation. Isla, initially hesitant, slowly opens up, finding unexpected solace in his attentive listening. Caleb's steady presence and quiet empathy provide her with a sense of comfort she hasn't felt in a long time. For Caleb, these moments with Isla are refreshing. His own marriage to Marina has grown distant and predictable, lacking the spark it once had. Isla's energy and vulnerability intrigue him. She represents something new and exciting in his otherwise structured and routine life. He finds himself looking forward to her appointments, drawn to her warmth and the way she makes him feel more alive. As their conversations become more intimate, the boundaries between doctor and patient blur. Isla starts to crave the attention Caleb gives her, finding in him a source of emotional support she desperately needs. Caleb, in turn, feels a thrill he hasn't experienced in years, though both are aware of the dangerous path they're treading. One rainy evening, Isla comes in for a last-minute appointment after experiencing unusual discomfort. As she waits in the dimly lit exam room, she feels particularly vulnerable, her emotions heightened by her pregnancy and ongoing separation. Dr. Caleb Verdon enters the room, his usual calm presence soothing her. After examining her and reassuring her that everything is fine, they sit together for a moment, the silence thick with unspoken tension. Isla, overwhelmed by her loneliness, begins to cry. Caleb instinctively reaches out to comfort her, and in that moment, the professional boundary between them collapses. Their shared vulnerability, the emotional void in Isla's life, and Caleb's dissatisfaction with his stagnant marriage, brings them dangerously close. In a moment of weakness, they kiss, the act an impulsive release of the feelings they've both been suppressing. What begins as an emotional connection quickly turns physical. They embark on a secret affair, meeting in secluded spots outside of Caleb's clinic. For Caleb, the affair is an escape from the suffocating monotony of his marriage to Marina, who has grown distant. For Isla, Caleb becomes her anchor in an otherwise chaotic life, filling the emotional gap her estranged husband left behind. Both know it's wrong, yet they can't stop, driven by a mutual need for intimacy and escape. Marina Verdon, a deeply introspective woman, has always been aware of the subtle changes in her marriage to Caleb. Over the years, their relationship has settled into a predictable routine, and while they rarely fight, the emotional distance between them has steadily grown. Caleb's once attentive nature has been replaced with quiet detachment, and although Marina senses this shift, she chooses not to confront it directly. Lately, Caleb's behavior has become even more concerning. He comes home later than usual, offers vague explanations for his absences, and often seems distracted, as if his mind is elsewhere. Marina notices the way he avoids eye contact during their brief conversations, and the way his phone is always face down, a small but telling detail. She begins to suspect that something deeper is wrong, though she hesitates to voice her fears. Instead of addressing her growing unease, Marina buries herself in her work as a freelance editor. She spends long hours in her home office, immersing herself in projects, finding comfort in the familiarity of her career. The work serves as a convenient distraction, allowing her to avoid confronting the unsettling reality that her husband may be slipping away from her. Yet, deep down, Marina knows that this silence cannot last forever. As Marina buries herself in her work, the emotional chasm between her and Caleb widens. Caleb's affair with Isla deepens. Though guilt increasingly gnaws at him, he becomes torn between his loyalty to his family and the intense pull he feels toward Isla. However, he rationalizes his actions by convincing himself that the affair is temporary, a distraction from his stagnant marriage. Isla, on the other hand, grows more attached to Caleb, relying on him as her only source of emotional support. Her pregnancy progresses, and with each passing month, she becomes more desperate for Caleb to commit to her. She starts daydreaming about a future where he leaves Marina and they raise her baby together, though Caleb avoids discussing anything beyond the present. Their secret meetings become more strained as Isla's expectations grow, but Caleb remains non-committal. Isla, sensing Caleb pulling away as his guilt increases, becomes more erratic. She starts messaging him more frequently, asking for reassurance and questioning whether he'll leave Marina. Caleb, feeling the walls closing in, tries to distance himself, telling Isla they need to take a step back. This pushes Isla over the edge. Fearing she will be left alone and abandoned again, she threatens to expose their affair if Caleb doesn't make a decision. She even hints at contacting Marina directly. Caleb, now panicked, tries to placate her, but the situation is spiraling out of his control. Marina Verdon had always prided herself on being perceptive, quietly observing the world around her. So when her husband, Caleb, began to act distant and evasive, she didn't need to hear his confession to know that something was wrong. He was coming home later than usual, avoiding eye contact, and always had his phone on silent. One evening, while Caleb was in the shower, Marina's suspicions got the better of her. She unlocked his phone and scrolled through his messages, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and certainty. There, buried under months of medical updates and patient records, were intimate texts from a woman named Isla. The confirmation of her worst fears sent a cold shock through her. Caleb wasn't just having a casual affair, he was emotionally involved with another woman, and the woman was pregnant. The betrayal cut deep, but Marina wasn't one to confront problems head-on. Instead, her mind raced with plans. Marina had always been more calculated than emotional, and this situation required precision. If Caleb thought he could carry on an affair and deceive her, he was sorely mistaken. She would fix this, not by confronting Caleb, but by removing Isla from the picture entirely. Over the next few days, Marina observed Caleb more closely, waiting for the right opportunity. When she noticed him leaving the house for an extended work commitment, she saw her moment. She took Caleb's phone and copied Isla's number without him knowing. Then, in an uncharacteristic move, she reached out to Isla, posing as a supportive, heartbroken wife who simply wanted to talk. She suggested they meet at her house, under the guise of resolving things calmly. Isla, desperate for clarity and overwhelmed by the emotional toll of the affair, agreed. The day of the meeting, Marina prepared her home with careful attention. She chose the time precisely, knowing Caleb would be at work and unaware. The setting was intentionally intimate, as if Marina wanted a heart-to-heart conversation between two women who had been hurt by the same man. But beneath her calm exterior, Marina's anger simmered, carefully restrained. When Isla arrived, she was visibly anxious, her pregnancy showing, her face a mix of hope and fear. She had expected some sort of confrontation, but she also hoped this could lead to a resolution. Perhaps Marina would demand to leave Caleb, or perhaps they could reach some painful but clear agreement. Marina greeted her with a tight smile, offering her tea, her voice measured and soothing, betraying none of the venom she felt inside. They sat in the living room, and the conversation began civilly enough. Marina asked Isla how long the affair had been going on, nodding thoughtfully as Isla, with trembling hands, explained everything. But as the minutes passed, the atmosphere grew increasingly tense. Marina's questions became sharper, more pointed. She asked if Isla really thought Caleb would leave his family for her, whether she believed he truly loved her or just the thrill of something new. Isla, sensing the hostility behind Marina's calm tone, tried to defend herself. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," she said, her voice breaking. "But Caleb, he said he cared about me. He promised." "Promises," Marina interrupted coldly, standing up abruptly. "He promised me too, and look where that got us." The tension reached its peak. Isla, realizing that this wasn't just a conversation, but an attack on her existence in Caleb's life, stood up as well. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said, tears filling her eyes. "But I love him. And I'm pregnant." Marina's eyes darkened at the mention of the baby. In that moment, something in her snapped. She couldn't bear to hear another word. Without thinking, driven by rage and a desire to end this nightmare, Marina lunged at Isla, shoving her with sudden, terrifying force. Isla stumbled backward, her hands instinctively going to her stomach as she tried to steady herself, but it was too late. She fell hard, her body crashing against the edge of the staircase. The sound of the fall echoed in the quiet house, followed by a deafening silence. Isla lay motionless at the bottom of the stairs, her breath shallow and faint. After Marina stood frozen, staring at Isla's lifeless body, reality began to sink in. The adrenaline that had fueled her rage quickly faded, replaced by a terrifying clarity. Isla was dead, and Marina had crossed a line she could never undo. Panic surged through her. What had started as a calculated confrontation had ended in disaster, and now she had to act fast. Marina, always the planner, forced herself to breathe deeply and think. She couldn't afford to fall apart. If anyone found out she was involved, her life would be ruined. Caleb would know the truth, the affair would come to light, and she would lose everything. She needed to cover her tracks, but how? Marina remembers the nearby lake, an isolated area on the outskirts of town. It's a place where locals occasionally go fishing or hiking, but it's quiet, especially at night. The lake's depth and dense vegetation around it make it the perfect place to dispose of the body. If the body sank, it could remain hidden for weeks, perhaps longer. Marina hatches a new plan. First, Marina retrieves plastic sheeting and heavy-duty garbage bags from the garage. Moving quickly, she wraps Isla's body tightly in the plastic, ensuring no blood or fluids are left behind. She secures the plastic with duct tape, creating a makeshift body bag. Next, she methodically wipes down any surfaces Isla touched, leaving no fingerprints or trace of her presence. She knows that Isla's phone will be key evidence if anyone investigates, so she powers it off and slips it into Isla's bag, intending to dispose of it separately. Marina then returns to the body, her hands shaking slightly as she drags it out the back door to the garage. Thankfully, Caleb had installed thick curtains in the garage, preventing any nosy neighbors from seeing inside. She opens the trunk of her SUV, carefully loading Isla's body into it. The weight of the body, along with the emotional burden of what she's done, presses down on her, but she forces herself to focus. There's no time for second thoughts. Marina waits until the dead of night, ensuring the streets are quiet before pulling out of the driveway. She drives through the empty streets, every bump in the road making her stomach churn. Her mind races with paranoia. What if she's pulled over? What if someone sees her? But she presses forward, heading for the lake. When she arrives at lake, the area is shrouded in darkness. The water's surface is still, reflecting the moonlight in patches. Marina pulls her car to the side of the road, hidden by trees, and grabs a flashlight from the glove compartment. She quickly checks her surroundings to make sure no one is around. Her heart pounds as she opens the trunk and drags Isla's body toward the water, but she knows she must be thorough. She attaches weights, cinder blocks she found in the garage, to Isla's wrapped body, securing them with the same duct tape. Her hands are shaking, but her movements are precise. She knows that the weight is crucial. Without it, Isla's body could resurface. With the body weighted down, Marina pushes it into the water, watching as it sinks slowly beneath the surface. The splash is muffled in the quiet night, and within seconds, the body disappears into the murky depths of the lake. The water ripples briefly, then goes still again, as if nothing had happened. Marina breathes a shaky sigh of relief, but she knows her work isn't done yet. She retrieves Isla's bag from her car, removes the phone, and throws it as far into the lake as she can. It splashes and sinks instantly. Any connection between Isla and her, or Caleb, is now submerged in the cold, dark water. Next, she takes the bag and drives further away from the lake to dispose of it in a public dumpster, making sure it's far enough that no one would connect it back to lake. She wipes down the SUV's interior, erasing any trace of Isla's presence. By the time she returns home, she is exhausted but determined. Marina scrubs down the garage and double-checks the house to ensure nothing is out of place. Her heart still races, but she forces herself to remain calm. Caleb will never know the truth, and she's confident that she's erased any trace of Isla's visit to their home. The next day, when Caleb notices Isla hasn't contacted him, Marina plays her part perfectly. She pretends to know nothing, acting supportive, while subtly planting the idea that perhaps Isla had simply decided to leave town in distress. As the days go by, and Isla's disappearance becomes more noticeable, Marina watches with quiet satisfaction as the town speculates about what could have happened. The lake holds its secret, and Marina, cool and calculating, is confident that no one will ever find out what truly happened to Isla Montgomery. As days turn into weeks, Isla's disappearance becomes the center of town gossip, but with no body and no solid evidence, the case goes cold. Marina, convinced she's gotten away with murder, settles back into her life with Caleb, who remains haunted by the sudden vanishing of his mistress. He believes Isla simply fled out of despair, and Marina carefully nurtures this idea, playing the supportive wife. However, just when Marina feels safe, a twist of fate threatens her plan. A severe drought hits the town, causing lake's water level to recede dramatically. One day, a hiker stumbles upon a body wrapped in plastic, weighed down by cinder blocks, partially visible beneath the shallow water. The discovery shocks the community and immediately draws police attention. The investigation reignites with new urgency, and it doesn't take long for the police to link the body back to Isla. As detectives piece together her final days, Marina's calm exterior begins to crack. Forensics reveal the bruising on Isla's body, inconsistent with an accidental fall. With the weight of evidence closing in, Marina's carefully crafted story unravels, and she faces the looming reality that her crime will not remain buried forever. As Isla's body is recovered from lake, the police investigation intensifies. Forensics quickly identify the body and determine that Isla's death was no accident. Her injuries, especially the bruising and the manner in which she was bound and weighted down, suggest foul play. Suspicion inevitably falls on those closest to Isla, leading detectives to Caleb. Under pressure during questioning, Caleb admits to his affair with Isla, revealing his strained relationship with Marina. Detectives start digging deeper into Marina's life, and inconsistencies in her alibi and behavior emerge. They discover that Marina had the opportunity and motive to harm Isla. The cold, calculating exterior she had so carefully maintained begins to crack. Marina had been meticulous in covering her tracks, but small mistakes, like the missing texts she deleted from Isla's phone and her fingerprints on the duct tape, eventually give the police enough evidence to arrest her. With mounting evidence and growing pressure, Marina's once composed facade collapses. She is charged with Isla's murder, and during her trial, the full scope of her jealousy, manipulation, and rage comes to light. The court, moved by the tragedy of Isla's death and the unborn child she carried. She is convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to a long prison term, losing the life she had so ruthlessly tried to protect. Meanwhile, Caleb, racked with guilt and public shame, must live with the consequences of his choices, forever haunted by the lives destroyed in the wake of his affair. This case reminds us that beneath even the most idyllic communities, dark secrets can lie just beneath the surface, waiting to be exposed. Write down your thoughts about the case in comments. Thank you for watching World True Crime. Make sure to subscribe for more stories that reveal the dark side of human nature, where crime and betrayal leave a lasting impact on those involved.